and I'm going to kind of get started on the next part. So, I thought it would have been better, which is why I did it the way I did it, to talk about composition in photography before we start actually talking about how cameras work. And what I want to show you is this is the most important thing. Now, if you remember a little while back, let me put this down here. I remember that time I showed you all the cameras and everything. So I wanted to discuss what's going on here. I don't want this. Go away. So I wanted to discuss the day I brought in all those old cameras, okay, and I was showing them to you. All of these old cameras work manually, okay. Now I mentioned this the other day that when I use fully automatic camera, I still shoot manually. And why is that? Hey, Tyrone. Elijah and I missed you today, man. All right. How you doing, Diego?
Hey.
Okay, good. So let me backpedal a little bit and kind of start over. So the last few days I was talking about composition in photography. And if you remember a little while back, I did a presentation in my office where I was holding up all these old cameras. And I actually mentioned yesterday that even though I have these fully automatic cameras, I still like to shoot manually. I even shoot manual with my phone. They make a really cool app, and they make them for Android and they make them for iPhones where you can actually turn your phone into a manual camera. So why would you want to do that? Well, it all leads to this right here. And we cover this in like great detail, but I wanted to at least introduce you to it today because we'll pick up with it, next week. So this is just kind of a nice way to introduce yourself. So there are three main parts to how a manual camera works, or actually any camera, more of the advanced cameras. If you know what a DSLR is called, I mentioned it's those big cameras with the lenses. So you can take them off. Well, that's called a digital single lens reflex. And that's what that means. So in order to take advantage of doing really cool pictures, you would go in and use the exposure triangle. So there's three parts to it. The first one's called aperture, or f-stop. And it's the opening on the lens of the camera. So I'm going to jump to this real quick. So if you look at aperture, okay, if you see what this is right here, this is if you actually took a lens off of those cameras where they have interchangeable lenses. And you'll see this tiny little hole in the back. Okay, that actually has blades on it that open and close to let light in and out of the camera. So, and now here's the annoying part. The higher the number is, the smaller the opening is. You think it would be the other way around, right? But of course not. It makes it more complicated that way. Is that actually anybody here familiar with any of these terms I just said so far, like aperture, shutter speed, ISO? Raise your hand if you do.
I remember them from the notes that I took.
Okay, cool. Real quick, did anybody open up that Ed puzzle or no? Malaysia, did you get into it?
Yeah.
And it works?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So, and thank you too, Jordan. So well, going back to this, aperture is the amount of light that you let in and out of the camera. And I said this yesterday, and this is probably one of the key points of my conversation from yesterday. And actually, Tyrone has been fortunate enough to be in class working with the cameras. You always don't want to shoot fully automatic because, you're going into this field, you're going to kind of be expected to understand the basics, how to work manually, because there's a lot of really cool effects and photographic and video techniques that you're just not going to be able to get with a fully automatic setting on a camera. And one of the examples I made yesterday was, did you ever see those cool pictures at night where a bunch of cars are going down the freeway and it's just streaks of light? Okay, you could not do that with an automatic camera, because what's the automatic camera going to do? It's going to be like, wow, it's really dark, I need to use a flash. Okay, so you want to be able to photograph the subject the way you want it, because I mentioned yesterday also, cameras do not know what you're taking a picture of. They only see contrast, lights and darks, and how to focus on it. Doesn't know you're taking a picture of an ice cream cone or your dog or a house or a car. It just uses shadow and highlight to take the picture. you know what you want to take a picture of. So there's no better way to take the picture than manually and doing it yourself and using the exposure triangle. And you can see on here, there's different openings on the camera. Now, this is kind of a crazy thing. Whoa, here's a kind of a crazy thing to think about. Let me go back up again. When you let more light into the camera, the more shallow, it's called the depth of field, because when you, it's actually called depth of field. When you open up a big opening on a lens, a ton of light comes in, so the camera has to close real quick. So what does that do? Well, it takes a very quick picture. Now, if you want to take a picture like this or this, you need to have like what's called a smaller aperture, so you can get more and more stuff in the background. Now, let me show you this picture here of the couple. See how the background's blurred? A lot of your cameras now, I know the iPhone has that portrait mode. It makes, it's kind of fake the way Apple does it, but Apple will just blur the background with their phone. Now, you want to use Aperture to blur the background because, you know, we know they're on the beach, but what's the picture about? It's about them, okay? So you can use these techniques to emphasize different things going on in your picture. So for example, if I go down here, sorry, getting the hang of this. Here's some really good examples of aperture or f-stop. So when you shoot sports, you want to take a very bright, large opening because it'll take a fast picture. So if you want to catch that guy getting tackled or that girl slam dunking a ball or, you know, swinging a golf club, you're going to need a lot of light and you're going to need to take a fast picture. So you can see here, but what does it do to the background? It blurs it. But that's a pretty cool effect, actually. Same thing here with the flowers. You can see where it has some of the pictures are in focus and some aren't. So you can actually use this f-stop or this aperture to pick and choose what you want to be in focus in the frame. So everybody kind of follow me so far? I know it's a lot. So I'm really just giving you a basic overview right now. But starting next week, I'm going to go, today we're going to talk just about aperture. The next day, we're going to talk just about shutter speed. The next day, we're just going to talk about what's called ISO. So this is just a kind of a quick overview. And if you'd like, you know, I can give you some links to stuff that you can check out to kind of, you know, learn as you go when I'm not around. Because this also applies to video production, okay? Now, you may have actually seen this on TV. Did you ever watch a sports event? You see these gigantic lenses? They're like a foot or 3 feet long. These camera lenses cost about $20,000. And why do you think that is? It's because they're huge, bright lenses. You need a big piece of glass to let all of this light to take that quick picture, okay? And that's why you see when people, you know, you see these poor photographers get hit by a tackle, they fall to the ground and they hold their camera up in the air because it's so expensive. So they usually don't care if they get hurt because they have life insurance. But if you drop your camera, it's a $30,000 camera. Okay. So that is how you control your depth of field. The next part is jumping over to here is your shutter speed. Okay. Now this is probably the most, I guess, well-known of all of them. You can hear a camera take a picture like real quick, or you can hear a picture go when you you know, when you hit that shutter button, you take the picture, you might not hear it take, you'll hear click and then another click to close it. Or if it's really fast, you hear one click. Okay. Why is that? So check that out. Have you ever seen pictures like this where the sky and in the background is, and the trees and everything are nice and sharp, but the water looks like silk, right? It has that, like that real kind of cool effect to it. That's because they're probably using, they would have to use a tripod to hold it in place. But you think about it, the sky's not moving, the trees aren't going anywhere, but the water's moving. So anything other than that water is going to be sharpened in focus, but look at that cool effect that you can get by using the different shutter speeds on your camera. And a lot of the time, you'll be able to change your camera settings from like a 1 second picture to 1/1000th of a second of a picture. and you kind of see, this is a really cool picture. See how the water has like this smoky look to it? And then I mentioned here, when you have these cars going down the street, okay? If you've ever wondered how that's done, they have to have a tripod to hold that camera in place, because if you stood there, even just breathing will blur the picture, because it takes a really long picture to do that, okay? But if you've ever wanted to take pictures like this, you're going to learn how to be able to do that. And that's by doing these manual effects with your camera. But there's some really cool effects you can do. You could do painting with light. You can run around with a flashlight or colored LED lights and make these cool effects outside. Okay. You ever see stuff like this before where they draw shapes? This is all based on that shutter speed that we talk about. The camera stays open for a really long time, and then you can come up with these effects. See all the lights going by here and the person standing still. Okay. So there's some pretty cool reasons why you wouldn't want to be able to take pictures like that. And then here's another one where you take a really fast picture. So you can see that splash of water and a hummingbird caught in midair. If you've ever wondered how that gets caught, same thing here, water shooting out the hose. This is like putting a bullet or a BB through an ornament. So there's some really cool effects here right when that bubble gets popped. And that's with using a really, really fast shutter speed. Okay. So that's what shutter speed is. It's how fast. This is a cool one too. Shutter speed is really cool because, like I said, if you have a fully automatic camera, you're not going to be able to pull these kind of pictures off. Okay. So last but not least, okay, is you're going to, as soon as I get to it. All right, let me go back and move this out of the way. All right. So last but not least, the third one. It's actually called ISO or grain. This is probably the most complicated to understand. Back when people used to shoot film used to have what was called a light sensitivity to it. And the more sensitive it was to light, the more grainy the picture would be. Okay. So if you ever taken a picture with your phone and it looks really noisy, now it's called digital noise. Have you ever done something like that? Like, have you ever taken a picture and it looks all grainy and pixelated? It's because you probably did not have enough light to take your picture. So you can actually increase what's called the ISO. Like maybe you have a camera that just doesn't have a really expensive lens and it's dark. And you can't take a really fast picture because you're in a dark room. Well, you can increase the light sensitivity on your camera. You can still take a picture, but it's not going to be as sharp. But that's okay. It's better than not getting anything at all. And the way digital cameras are now, you can actually increase that film noise pretty well and still get a very nice picture out of it. So once again, here are some examples of shutter speeds, okay, that really kind of shows you when you shoot really fast as opposed to really slow, you can take more light in and get that big aperture in there, and more stuff is in focus if you notice the background on this one, okay, as opposed to over here. So these are your settings right here. It says 1/1000. That's how fast it took the picture. That's your shutter speed. The F number is that aperture or f-stop, is how bright the lens opening was when you took the picture. And then this is how sensitive the camera was, but it's a lot sharper. But you can see if you take a real quick picture, it doesn't give a lot of time for light to get in, so you don't get as much detail. Okay. And then once again, over here, you take a slow picture. This is 1/30th. That's a half a second. This is 1/1000th of a second. So it's all, I hate to tell you, it's math. It's all fractions. And that's why it's important to know math, especially for photography and digital video and things like that, even in music and sound. So there's some really good examples that I put in here, and I will put that out. And you see a really good video example, if the video is still good.
Fred Smith here told us the B&H
Fred
photo
Smith.
helped change his life. Fred, tell us your story.
So you'll see.
Photography. I'd like to explain.
So what I just said to you is probably blowing your mind right now, right? It's a little bit confusing. This guy does a really, really good job explaining everything I just kind of went over. So I would highly recommend watching this video. It's like 15 minutes long. We're not going to sit here and watch it together. But he does a really good job because he has a camera set up and he shows you shutter speed. And then he takes another picture and shows you, you know, aperture or depth of field, and then how the camera settings change as you're taking pictures. Okay. So this is like going to be a really big deal in the future. See, that's a much faster picture that was taken. Okay. And he shows you the settings on the camera and you can see that it froze the motion of the fan. So as I said, I know it kind of, there's a lot going on here with that. But this does a really nice job explaining everything I just said and how that works. So I will actually post that today, and I'll probably make an Ed puzzle out of it and give you more points. Okay. So if you're completely and totally confused, raise your hand. Do you kind of understand what I'm explaining right now? So I would probably tell you the best way to understand this, and let me here's another one with the image noise. So I'll provide you with these couple of slides and that exposure triangle with that video. I'll send you all that stuff. It'll be in the Schoology link. You know what? If I don't get to it today because I have a meeting, I'll send it next week. I hope to get to it today. Not
You
next
said we're
week,
having a test on all this.
tomorrow morning. Yeah, but not until like next Friday, right before the break. Okay, and we'll do a big review before that. If you're watching the videos and filling out the, you know, doing the Ed puzzles, trust me when I say the questions in the Ed puzzles are probably going to be strikingly similar to the ones on the quiz. You know, to go create all these new quiz questions. Okay, but this is like super important stuff. I cannot stress how important this is, because if I tell you and I say, Tyrone, I want you to go run down the hall and take pictures of students welding, you're gonna have to set your camera up a certain way. You want to catch the sparks, you know, from the welds when they're being done. So you got to take a slower picture, but then you got to have a tripod. Or if I say, you know, Alex, I need you to take the video camera because somebody is stopping by, the governor's coming by, I need you to go and record it. Well, Alex is going to have to record it a certain way. Now, sometimes you're right, you can get away with hitting automatic, but you want to be able to have those professional effects. Okay. So once you learn, and what's that?
Can I get paid by doing that?
Yes, you will get paid when you do well. And here's the thing, I'll actually answer that question too, Alex. The last year of school, if you're a third year student and it's the third and fourth marking period, we like to try to set students up with what's called co-op. Does anybody know what co-op is? That's when we send you out to go work with people in the field. Now, generally,
you're talking about like games co-op, like online thing.
yeah,
like
I know. Yeah, I know that term too. But it's called cooperative education. So let's say Deshauna wants to be a mechanic and she's in our automotive program. We would set her up with a job at the dealership, at a local car dealership, fixing cars and job shadowing and watching what they're doing. You don't get paid, or you do get some pay, but it replaces coming here. You actually go out to work a few days a week and then the rest you spend here. Okay. So we're trying to set up opportunities with local video companies, local sound studios, for you to go and work in the studio and to work as a videographer. I actually have a friend that has that opportunity right now, and they travel the country videoing water sport games at colleges, like water volleyball, I think water polo. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but they give you the giant lenses that I talked about and the video cameras and the equipment. You don't get paid, but they feed you, they put you in a hotel, you know, you get to stay in a cool place and it looks fantastic on your resume, and then you have job experience. So it's all about the long run, about getting paid. But this guy actually rewarded a few students with $800 camera kits because they worked their butts off for him. So we try to provide those opportunities, but here's the important part. If you don't know the terminology, the vocabulary, and you're not filling out the work, do you think I'm going to send you on those opportunities? Probably not, right? I don't want to send, you know, let's say Mr. Stanford goes and works at a video studio, and the guy looks at him and goes, look, I need you to take this DSLR and set it up manual 1/1000th of a second at f8, you know, so we're going to take some headshots. And when you stand there and you're like, what? That represents our program. So we want you to understand how important these terms, the terminology, the equipment, that stuff never changes. The exposure triangle has been in existence since cameras were created. It's never going to change. Okay. So learning all these fundamentals are so super important. Just like music is very different from what it was, 500 years ago, but it still follows the same principles of music where you have beats and melodies and harmonies, and how keys are on pianos. That stuff's never going to change. Now you can add mixers and beats, sound effects and pedals, but the fundamentals is probably the most important thing. It's like I said, it's never going to change. So there's a lot of cool opportunities, but as I said, I want you to know this terminology, referring back to Alex. So if I send him down the hall to film a guest speaker to come in for a half hour, I'm obviously going to hook him up down the road by either writing him a tremendous recommendation when he wants to go away to school, or I might say, Alex, you did a great job doing video. I found this really good scholarship for $5,000 that I'm going to recommend you apply for, and I'll write you the best letter I've ever written in my entire life. So at this point in your education, don't think about money, getting paid. You're trying to get educated a lot, as much education and knowledge as possible, so you can get paid in the future way more money than some people stopped after high school. So that's really the kind of way you can think about it. But that's not to say you still can't make money. By the time you're done learning the graphic design and the photography, there's no reason you can go out and take headshots. I actually had a student email me, one of my returning students. He's doing headshots for his aunt and uncle and kids. And he's like, Mr. McCarthy, can I ask you a question? I want to take pictures. He got a camera for Christmas, and I recommended what kind of camera, and his parents bought him the camera. And he's like, I got my first job. What should I do? I said, well, how many pictures are you taking? Where's it going to be? How long do you think it's going to take? And he made $200. So, and that's from the knowledge that he learned from me, and that he applied to using this camera and practicing. So it's a big deal. Okay. And that's why this stuff is important to learn. So that's really what I had for today. Does anybody have any last minute questions of anything at all? So just like I said, bear with it. This stuff really does pay off in the long run. Like I said, me being a professional photographer, and I know this type of stuff, and I know what, composition, and I know how to use photography and manual settings and composition. I'm probably going to, and I usually do, I get hired over, let's say, no offense, let's say, who haven't I picked on yet? Malaysia. And she's a first year photo student, doesn't know a lot, but she goes out and take pictures. Who do you think they're going to hire? They're going to hire somebody that's been like what they call classically trained, taught the fine art aspects of composition, how to use a camera manually, than some people that maybe have a big wallet and can go out and buy a really expensive camera, but just take pictures because they never learned composition. They never learned how to shoot manually. So there'll always be a job for us because we know the basics and the foundation of it. So, but that's what I had for today. So I'll kind of close out this week, but do me a favor, everybody. Everybody, hands up if you're listening. Awesome. Almost everybody. Jordan, I think, is asleep. Jordan, you sleeping? Okay. So I just want to make sure. Wow, Malaysia's got 2 hands. You get double credit. So please go in when you're done. How about just do it now? Go into that ed puzzle and take the questions. There's 10 questions. You're literally getting 100 points. Okay. It will totally raise your grade, and the end of the marking period is coming to an end. So please go on there as soon as I cut you off and just take it real quick. Take you 10 minutes, if that. Okay. Get an easy 100 points on the board. Okay. So tomorrow I'll follow up with you. Yeah. And that's it really. Tyrone, just so you know, I just had Elijah working on some side projects today. So you really didn't miss anything, like working on the project. So just everybody keep working on your album cover, front and back, if you have not submitted it yet, please. And don't forget, when you go to submit, you have to write a page of why you chose those particular songs. Okay. Please don't forget that. Okay. and keep doing your discussion posts, because that's how we do your attendance. And don't forget your exploratory on patterns. That stuff is, it's actually supposed to be due at the end of this week. So please get it done. Next week, I'll give you a 1-week project, and then we'll go into spring break, okay? All right. If you need me, let me know. Thanks so much for popping in today. I appreciate it. And yeah, keep an eye out for this video and posting on Schoology. So take care, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping in.